All right, let's get into it. You know that slick little device in your pocket? The one you probably can't imagine living without? Well, it feels like it just showed up one day, right? But its origin story is this incredible saga full of high-stakes rivalries, battlefield innovations, and a desperate need for safety. Today, we are going to unwrap the amazing history of how we went from being literally tied down by wires to holding the entire world in the palm of our hands.
In this quote, it really gets to the very heart of the story. You see, this whole journey didn't start because someone wanted to check their email on the go. It started with a critical, life-or-death need for safety. Just try to picture it. You're a cop in 1950s New York City. You see a crime in progress. What do? You have to literally run down the street, find a payphone, and hope it works. That simple frustration was the spark. The first big push for mobile communication wasn't for us, it was for them, to keep everyone safe.
So that brings us to Chapter 1, the moment we all started dreaming of cutting the cord. For, decades, communication was bolted to the wall. It was this static, unmoving thing. But the dream of giving it legs? Well, that was about to become a reality.
Yeah, this slide just nails the two clashing realities. On one side, you've got the world of the mid-20th century where communication was literally tethered to a physical place. The first attempts to solve this, like those early police car radios, were so clumsy. The gear was so massive it filled the entire trunk of a car. But on the other side, you can see the dream. This promise of an instant mobile connection that would completely redefine what safety and efficiency even meant.
You know, every great story has that one place where the magic really happens. For the mobile phone, that place was Bell Labs. Seriously, think of it like a real-life invention factory, a place just buzzing with geniuses who were laying the fundamental groundwork for the technology that would eventually shrink down to fit right in your pocket.
And this, right here, illustrates the single most important invention for our entire story, the transistor. Before this little thing, electronics ran on these big, hot, power-sucking things called vacuum tubes. You can see them on the left. A phone built with those would literally need a truck to carry it around. But the transistor, that tiny little chip on the right, it changed everything. It was small, it was efficient, and it made portable electronics a real possibility. Honestly, without this tiny switch, our story would end right here.
Okay, on to our second chapter. So the theory was there, but the technology really needed a trial by fire. And, well, there's no greater trial by fire than a global conflict, right? The harsh realities of war became the ultimate brutal testing ground for portable communication. This device, the SCR-300, is pretty much the direct ancestor of the phone you're holding. It was built by a company that would later rename itself Motorola. This 35-pound beast was carried on soldiers' backs in World War II. It was heavy, it was awkward, but you know what? It worked. It proved that real-time, two-way communication on the move wasn't just possible, it was a weapon. And those lessons learned on the battlefield about making things durable and reliable, that became a core part of Motorola's DNA.
Now for Chapter 3. With all the foundational tech in place, the stage was set for this epic corporate showdown. The race was officially on to take all these separate ideas, the transistor, the portable radio, and build the one thing that would change the world. The first ever, honest-to-goodness, handheld mobile phone. And here it is, the Motorola Dynatac 8000X, affectionately nicknamed the brick or the pork bone phone, for pretty obvious reasons. It's almost comical looking at it now. It weighed 2.5 pounds, it gave you just 30 minutes of talk time, and then it needed 10 full hours to recharge. But don't let its clunky look fool you. This thing was an absolute revolution. And this revolution, it came with a truly staggering price tag. In 1983, this would have set you back almost $4,000. To put that in perspective, that's way over $10,000 today. So yeah, this was not for everybody. This was a statement piece, a piece of luxury tech for the absolute cutting edge.
And this is the moment it all came together. Just imagine the scene. Motorola engineer Martin Cooper is standing on a New York City street holding that massive brick. And who does he call first? His chief rival over at Bell Labs. That quote, it's not just a simple statement, it's a declaration of victory. It was the ultimate flex, proving to the world that Motorola had won the race to create true mobile freedom.
All right, Chapter 4. So how did the phone go from this crazy expensive toy for the rich to a global phenomenon? Well, the next giant leap wasn't really about inventing something new, it was about access. It was about taking this incredible technology and putting it into the hands of millions. And this, my friends, is the era of Nokia.
Nokia's absolute genius was an understanding that a phone could be so much more than just a communication device. They looked at it and saw an extension of your personality, a fashion accessory. They're the ones who introduced interchangeable faceplates, making phones colorful, personal, and totally customizable. They completely changed our idea of what a phone was even supposed to be.
And they did it through a whole series of brilliant innovations you see right here. They perfected the simple button interface. They made phones so tough they became legendary. You know the memes about the unbreakable phone. And they popularized a whole new way of talking to each other, SMS texting. They even put that simple, super addictive game called Snake on every device, basically creating the idea of mobile gaming. And most importantly, by making them affordable, Nokia didn't just sell phones, they created a global culture around them.
So now for Chapter 5. At the absolute height of Nokia's power, when the entire world was covered in physical keyboards, a challenger arrived, and they asked a very simple but very disruptive question that was about to change the course of technology forever.
And that question was the core of Steve Jobs' entire philosophy. See, everybody else was trying to build a better keyboard. Jobs looked at the keyboard and saw it as the problem itself. Why would you dedicate half of your device to a fixed set of plastic buttons when you could have a screen that could become, well, anything?
And this slide just shows you those two worlds colliding. On the left, you've got the world that was dominated by BlackBerry and Nokia. The buttons are permanent. They're always there, taking up valuable space. But on the right, you have the iPhone's vision. The interface is just software. It can change. It can adapt to whatever you're doing. The whole device becomes this magical piece of glass that you can directly touch and manipulate.
And here's the most crucial point of all. The touchscreen was amazing, sure, but the real revolution was what was happening on the inside. The iPhone wasn't just a phone that could browse some watered-down version of the web. No, it was the very first device to put a full-fledged computer operating system, literally the brain of a Mac, into the palm of your hand. That was the game changer. That's what unleashed the app economy and completely transformed entire industries.
Which brings us to today, and to our final chapter. We've gone from these clunky radios and cars all the way to pocket-sized supercomputers. So the big question is, where does this incredible story possibly go from here?
Just look at this timeline. It shows the insane acceleration of this story. It took about 30 years to get from those battlefield radios to the very first cell phone call. Then, just 20 years after that, Nokia basically put a phone in every pocket on Earth. A decade later, the iPhone showed up and rewrote all the rules. And now we're in an era of foldable screens and technologies that were pure science fiction just a little while ago.
And all of that leaves us with one final, fascinating question. We started this whole journey with a tool that was born out of a need for safety. It evolved into a fashion statement, then a pocket computer, and today, for so many of us, it feels like a third limb, right? Almost like an extra organ. So, what happens next? What happens when the physical device just melts away into things like augmented reality glasses or seamless connections we don't even have to think about? The quest for wireless freedom isn't over. In fact, it's just entering its next and maybe most incredible phase.